Once we understand how to draw the three-dimensional forms of sphere, cube, and cylinder and cone, we can use that or a combination to draw any object. Now we have a good understanding about how to draw a cube in space. What do we do with other shapes? How do we put them in space? Because we are creating that illusion of perspective so that on a two-dimensional piece of paper, we give the illusion of 3 dimensions, of a nice solid form. Let's start with something simple, like a cylinder. If we look at a cylinder and we look at it from the base, we can see that it is actually a circle. But as we set that circle back in space, it becomes more and more of an ellipse until it hits our eye level at the horizon, and now it is a straight line. So with a simple cylinder, I'm just going to use a straight edge here. Starting here, let's say this is the side of the cylinder and we're going to do vertical as vertical. As it hits our horizon level, we know that that is a straight line. It appears to be a straight line. But as it goes down away from that, we can see more of a curve here because of that circle. Or if it goes up the other direction, we see more of a curve going this way. So the upper curves will go this way in increasing values until it hits the straight line at the horizon. And the baseline will start curving more this way as it goes down. What I tend to do is line a long, thin, and then the increasing ellipse. I'm sorry, I'm at an awkward angle here. And then as it comes this way, because we're thinking around and around this cylinder. So what we're doing is we're drawing, like this line goes around, we're just considering lines and lines and lines around that cylinder. So the top of this cylinder, above the horizon line, will be an ellipse. Now there's no sharp corner right here. It might look sharp, but it is always a bit of a curve. I'm putting my hand up here so I can use the fulcrum of my wrist a little bit better on that. So here is that upper line, and there's the base. And in this way, of course, as we're looking at that curve going down, again, my awkward angle here, I apologize. And we can't really see what's happening on that back side, but we know that there's a curve coming around here as it sits on the table. So that's how we put a cylinder into perspective. You know, if it's a glass cylinder, we can see through, we can see that curve on the other side. And if it's a lighthouse, say, we'll know that these curves going around get decreasingly straighter and straighter until we get up to where that line is here. And then from this point on, the line around the lighthouse as we're looking up starts to go this way, so we see those lines. I didn't mean to show you the top of that. There, we can't see the top. Sorry about that line. We need to pass this through. Since we cannot see the top of that cylinder as it's away from us, we'll see just that curve that's curving away. And the same down here. This way it tends to curve toward us. We do not want a cylinder sitting on a table with a flat bottom. The illusion is not flat. We have to have this curve. We have to make it pure to its form. And then this one, kind of straight, straight, And I'm just thinking through. It's going around, but I'm thinking through as it comes around these curves. So there's a nice cylinder in space. We're always thinking through. What about something like this? Interesting shape. It's basically a cylinder that comes in, or we can think of it as a cone. It's fatter at the bottom, smaller at the top. So I'm going to draw it like a cone. And I'm going to be looking down on this one. It's not the pencil I want. So at this point, I'm just drawing this bottom part, and I am going to put it in space. We want to be sure that the center, if we dropped a plumb line down through the top to the middle of the bottom, that would be accurate. So there would be our plumb line. That means anything here to here has to be the same distance from that center plumb line. As the shape goes out further, it's going to be going this way because that looks rather like a cone. It also has to go the same distance on the other side from that center. And we'll say here's the base. Now again, the base is a circle, but because we're seeing it in space, it's similar to this cylinder, and it's going to have that curve. Normally I would turn the paper, but since I am videoing this, I can't really turn the paper to get a nice curve. All right, so there's that curving up, and we do see a little bit of this top. Although it's not as big an ellipse as this, it's a little shorter because it's getting closer to the horizon. And then we could kind of figure this shape out. What is this shape? Oh my goodness, how would we figure this out? We could put it into a flat cube. So we could draw a shape of a cube and then make the shape within this. Let's try this. All right, so I'm going to have a little cylinder going up here. That's this part. And then here, I'm going to tilt it slightly so I'm looking at it. So this is the back side of the cube at an angle, and it's going to go off in this direction. So within this long, and here's a funny cube, this is good. We can't see what's going on that other side, but that will give us an idea. We do kind of need to know where the back side of this is going. I'm ignoring this handle thing right now because that's where the tip of this little cylinder that is the sprayer sits in here. So be sure you're aware of which it's looking away from us, so we're not going to see that inner aspect. This has a bit, it's kind of in this cube, but it also has a curve, so we're going to make that curve within that cube, that flattened cube. Comes down here, we see this angle, and this is up higher, so it's flat on the back, and it curves down this way. So we make slight adjustments, and when you're drawing and putting this into a painting or something more finished, you want to be sure the form is accurate at the beginning. Because later on when you start shading or coloring this, you can't, it's harder to fix as you go on. The same thing here, we could put a little cube down in this area. Look at that, how it kind of goes off in the distance. So we see that. We see a little bit of the base of this squirty thing. It's not accurate. This is going to be more of a curve. But you can see how we use our basic shapes of the cylinder, of the cube, of the cone, and we call call these container shapes. Because we actually put these objects within the containers that we know. Our containers are a cube, a cylinder, a cone, and a sphere. And by just drawing those basic shapes, we can get something accurate. You don't have to worry about, oh, can I draw the sprayer? You just need to be able to follow your basic shapes. About something like a shell. Okay, this shell we see is basically, it almost fits within a sphere. So we know how to draw a sphere, and we want to think of it as it goes around this way. We're drawing, see how these lines go around? We've got this, we have this. There's also minor lines going this way. So it's what happens with these objects. But it's a little bit off center, right? So if we drew a line through the center of this, it would be down in here somewhere. And then it spirals up. So here's the base, but it's a little fatter as it goes out. So we want to think that, but we're still following this basic cylinder. Can you see? Okay. Here, it comes into here. And I'm drawing this quickly, and you can really spend some time and get this down accurately. I just want to kind of get it down for you. Whoops, sorry. So now, out this way. It's a little flattened on the bottom here. These are just kind of tangential lines that are tangent to that curve. That helps me decide where it's going. Kind of goes out there a little bit more. So study it, but base it on the sphere. For whatever object you're using, consider what's the closest shape that you know, closest three-dimensional shape that you can put the object within. So we can see the form follows this around this way. As it comes more directly on us, it's almost would be a straight line, but then this curves away. It also curves this way at us. And what those lines are going to do is you're thinking of this three-dimensional form. That's going to help you eventually with your shading. Understanding the form accurately. Yeah, I'm seeing it at a slightly different angle, but basically that. So you can do this with many objects around the house. About something like this. It's just a bottle. We can set it in a cube. You now know how to draw a cube. I'm going to put it up. Okay, I'm drawing my closest corner. I'm looking at my line of sight, the angle that it goes off this way, the angle that goes off this way, that goes up to, and I can do the whole measurement, excuse me, to my horizon line from my vanishing point. Where did the vanishing point go? And this one goes off this way, to that vanishing point, that vanishing point. We look at the distance here. It's about as wide as it is tall. On this side, not quite, maybe 3/4. And this side, I see a lot less of it. So here, now that we have these lines, we know that this back line goes off to that vanishing point. Sorry, my arm is in the way. And this line goes off to this vanishing point. didn't get quite in the right spot. There. Okay. So now we have these. Here's our basic cube that the bottle is in. And we see it has slightly curved sides. So we can start curving those sides to make it fit. But because we have put it in a cube, then we know it's going to be quite accurate. Now the cylinder sitting on top sits right in the middle on top. So how do we find that? Well, as doing one of the sides of our house, we know if we dissect this side, say this top from this corner to this corner, and then this corner to this corner, even though it's in perspective and in space, we now know where the center of it is. And we can also figure out the center of this side. And the same on this side. Now again, we do these lines lightly so that they won't show up in our final drawing. That's the center of that. That's the center of that. So we know that it's going to go in here and across here. So our little cylinder is going to fit here. It's quite close to the horizon line, so we're not going to see as much of that top as we do of the side. And we are not worried about any of the surface decoration at this point. We are just looking for solid form. Now you can look at my drawing and you can kind of try to follow my drawing, but the best thing is to go around the house and find some simple objects like this and get started on them. Try them that way. Play around with it yourself, but you have the basic idea. I'm going to do a couple more. Here's a cup. I'm going to draw this from my point of view, which is going to be about, I think, like that. So as I look at this cup, I know it goes out, it gets wider. I'm measuring kind of the height of it. I see a big curve on the bottom because I'm looking down quite far on it. It has to be equidistant on the sides, and it's not, so this has to come over. I could already see that. I mean, if you want, you can measure it. So I know where the center is. And it's basically a cylinder, but it's got a fat spot on it. See how I'm drawing lightly at this point? I'm drawing lightly so I can choose the best of these lines to finish it with. See again, that curve is never, so you're looking at it more, it's more like this point of view that I'm doing. So now within that shape, I can draw the outline, the contour more accurately and kind of finish it off. This handle I can just put on as a shape, and I'm just looking at the curve. Just a little curve there. And it doesn't have to be accurate, but you can see how we have it cut. Again, I'm not concerned about the surface decoration. I'm looking at the form of a cup by using a cylinder. Oh, here's one. I like this. I used to have better shells in my class, but look at this shell. Let me get the angle here. Okay. To me, this is kind of a flattened sphere. So this area here, I'm thinking sphere. And it does kind of the same thing as this did, as it went off to that point. And then this part is almost like a cone, and it fits into that sphere. It overlaps that sphere. And it's a little irregular. It doesn't come directly off it. It comes off at a bit of a curve. So here's my cone. Basically, so there's the cone, there's that. This top part can also be a little fatter cone sitting off this central cylinder. Because we're looking at it this way, we can also see that this line of those ridges is going that way. So again, form. We're thinking form. Then once we have the form down, then let's see, straight, accurate, curve. Now we can make from the largest possible form first, and we start digging into more accurate aspects of the form. Got those little bumps on there. Nice curve here as it comes down very gracefully to the bottom. And from each of these bumps, and again, my arm is at the wrong angle. If I could move, I would. It's following that curve around. And then it dips down into this rounded part as it comes around. Oh, look at that. It's got a little crack in it. Crack, crack, crack. There. We just made a little crack. And it curves off into here quite nicely. It's kind of cracked and broken at the end, too. So I wasn't really highlighting. I was just thinking form. Get the form down. Practice this until you can see it without drawing all the form lines. Find the container shape that best fits your object. Here's one. It's basically a cone, fat at the bottom, goes kind of to a point at the top, but it is fat. And then once you get that down, then you can draw the little bits of details. And you don't want to draw every single detail. You want to indicate that they are there. Go around the house, find some objects, have fun with it. Any questions, let me know.